Well, she's here. The manager of Manchaland, Don Quixote, has been finally released, ending our almost 2-month-long wait and giving us our strongest bloodfiend. And oh boy, does she deserve that title. Manager Don Quixote is our new centerpiece to the Bleed team, boasting high damage with AoE and extreme clash power. She also can evolve each of her skills to become even stronger when put into a team alongside her fellow bloodfiends. In today's video I want to go over every skill, passive and mechanic that Manager Don has and figure out just how strong she can be, as well as when and how to use her. I will start off by explaining Don's skills in both their normal and enhanced forms, and then I'll go over her numerous passives, and then we'll take a look at how our manager changes the landscape for Bleed teams and what team comp is best for her. But before we start, you know what time it is. That's right, it's time to remind you that a majority of my viewers are not subscribed, so if you're enjoying my videos enough to come back to them, you should subscribe to never miss my new uploads. It takes just a second of your time and helps me out a lot. Another thing I want to bring attention to before we begin is the fact that you cannot get Manager Dawn by dispensing her for the first week of her release. Now, I obviously have CC RNG, so I got 2 of her on my first 10 roll. But if you aren't so lucky or want to make the responsible decision and wait that 1 week, you can add me as a friend and try out Dawn early without having to roll for her. Now, let's get back to our review. Dawn has a total of 8 skills due to her Empower mechanic, so I will go over all of them in very quick fashion, as not to waste like half an hour reading out all of them. Starting with Enough is Enough, her skill 1. This is a Pierce Sloth skill that rolls up to 15 with full conditionals, and converts Blood Fist into Hard Blood at a very good rate. It also inflicts a bit of bleed and heals Dawn for up to 10 HP. When Dawn is at 15 plus Hard Blood and Priest Gregor is on your team, her skill 1 is empowered into Whip. Whip rolls up to 19 with full conditionals, heals Dawn for up to 20 HP, inflicts her with 20 bleed, and inflicts a bunch of bleed on an enemy. It also activates bleed on the target once. After attacking with Whip, 10 Hard Blood is consumed. Dawn's normal second skill is Let All Blossom Free, a Pierce Rest skill that rolls up to 20 with full conditionals. It also heals Dawn for 10 HP, converts Blood Fist into Hard Blood, albeit at a much lower rate, and also gains up to 2 attack weight for Hard Blood on Dawn. This skill's first coin simply inflicts bleed, while the second one deals more damage based on bleed on the enemy and Blood Fist consumed by Dawn. With both effects at max, the damage of the coin is doubled. At 15 plus Hard Blood and with Barber Otis on your team, Dawn's second skill is empowered into Split Apart, which rolls up to 19 with full conditionals. But even though the power is lower compared to the base form, the damage is increased because the skill has 3 coins. It also gets attack weight based on Hard Blood, however Split Apart starts with 2 attack weight, allowing it to reach 1 more target. The Hard Blood is consumed after the attack. Much like with the base form, the first 2 coins just inflict bleed, and the last one deals more damage based on bleed on the target and Blood Fist consumed. However, Split Apart counts Blood Fist consumed by all units and not just Dawn. Next, we have Dawn's third and strongest skill, I Shall Impale. This is a Pierce Last skill that rolls up to 23, and goes even higher in clashes, reaching 25 power with both conditionals fulfilled. Much like skills 1 and 2, I Shall Impale heals Dawn for up to 10 HP and converts Blood Fist into Hard Blood. This skill also deals more damage based on bleed on the enemy and Blood Fist consumed by Dawn. With both of the effects at their maximum potential, the skill deals 150% more damage. Also, if Dawn kills an enemy with I Shall Impale, she increases Blood Fist by 60 and gains 10 Hard Blood. The third coin of the skill inflicts a bit of bleed. Finally, when Dawn is at 15 plus Hard Blood, her third skill is empowered into La Sangre. This skill rolls up to a whopping 36, scaling with both bleed on the enemy and Hard Blood on Dawn. It also deals more damage based on bleed and Blood Fist consumed by all units, up to a total of 150% bonus damage once again. After the attack, the skill consumes pretty much all of Don's hard blood, but gives half of it back if the skill killed an enemy, while also increasing Blood Fist by 100. All coins of the skill are unbreakable, and the last one inflicts 8 bleed and 4 bleed count. If the target is killed, the skill inflicts 5 bleed potency and 1 count against all enemies instead. Before we move on to Dawn's numerous passives, we have to take a look at her defensive skill. And of course, it has to be the best kind of defensive skill, a clashable counter. Laughter Shall Subside is a Pierce Lust skill that rolls up to 13 and converts Blood Fist into Hard Blood, while also applying Shimmering based on total Blood Fist consumed to one ally with the least HP. We will go over that buff a bit later. The second coin of the skill inflicts 2 bleed count. When Dawn is at 15 plus Hard Blood and Princess Rhoda is on your team, the defensive skill is empowered into build up to Finale. This skill rolls up to 16 and inflicts a lot more Shimmering on multiple allies, based on resonance, and then consumes half of Dawn's Hard Blood. The second coin is improved to inflict 3 bleed count instead of 2. Now that we're done with Dawn's skills, let's look at her passives, as she has quite a few, 4 to be precise, making Dawn's stat block by far the longest in the game. Dawn's first passive is the same one that all Bloodfiends have, and it introduces Blood Fist into the encounter. However, Dawn gets some unique extra effects. She takes precedence over Rhoda when consuming Blood Fist, and Dawn's HP also cannot go below 1 from bleed when she's using her empowered skill 1. Dawn's second passive is the ability that dictates what allows her to empower her skills. It also allows Dawn to gain 2 hard blood whenever an ally takes bleed damage or consumes Blood Fist, up to 3 times per turn. Dawn's third passive gives her buffs based on dead allies. If a Manchaland ally is defeated, Don Quixote starts gaining 1 more hard blood when gaining hard blood with her skills. If 3 other Manchaland allies are defeated, Dawn gains 3 additional hard blood, and also gains responsibility on turn start. Finally, the manager's fourth passive is the one that requires resources. With a cost of 4 last resources owned, Dawn gains the following effects. On kill, she increases Blood Fist by 10% of the killed enemy's HP, up to 100. This also works on abnormality parts. At turn end, Dawn gets 1 damage up for every 15% of missing HP up to 3 times. And if an ally is about to die to bleed damage, Dawn saves them from that for 1 turn. This effect can be activated once on every ally. In her support passive, Don Quixote gives away the second part of her Armadura de Sangre, giving the ally with the least HP damage up based on missing HP. This effect requires 3 last resonance to activate. And finally, we're done with Dawn's skills. However, before we can move on to her impact on the bleed team, we have to look at the 3 effects she adds into the game. First is Hard Blood, Dawn's signature 3-stage resource. This effect works like any other Bloodfiend resource, increasing its power with the amount of stacks. First, Dawn raises her speed values for every 10 Hard Blood. Then, at Hard Blood 2, she starts gaining offense level up based on the stack. At Hard Blood 3, Dawn gets both offense level up and defense level up based on the stack. Next up, we have Shimmering, Bloodfiend. This effect is a type of shield that Dawn gives to her allies. It stacks up to 50, and as long as the ally has that shield, all bleed damage taken by the shield is converted into Blood Fist. The effect expires at turn end. And last, we have Responsibility, the effect that Dawn gets after her 3 Bloodfiend allies have died. This effect is simple. It gives 1 clash power to Dawn and makes her deal and take 20% more damage. That's it, easy enough to understand. Now, I don't think I have to say this, but I will anyway. Dawn is insanely powerful when given her empowered skills. Her skill 1 is already insane, 19 power on a skill 1? Now that's just crazy. Granted, once Dawn hits 15 hard blood, every skill has to be strong, as they all consume hard blood. But still. I personally really enjoyed Dawn's skill 2 as well, as it finally gives Bleed a proper mass attack skill that doesn't need 4 turns of setup. This really helps, considering the current state of the game and it also makes Manager Don feel kind of like Don Office Sinclair. Where with that huge multi-target skill and the skill 3 nuke, she is going to always be number 1 in damage on your team, simply by being so overtuned. Speaking of overtuned, Don's skill 3 is obviously the most hype part of her kit, as it's a nuke skill akin to those of charge identities, that scales its damage further based on multiple factors. If you've ever used Dawn, you know she can do some crazy stuff with La Sangre. And also, I really appreciate how the name of the skill goes back to Dawn's base ego skill, which, you know, does the same thing, visually. However, Dawn doesn't just have flashy animations and a bunch of damage, because there are a couple of mechanics you need to pay attention to when playing this identity. First of all, Dawn is a second kindred, much like Rhodia. That means that Otis and Gregor cannot consume Bloodfist until Dawn has done so. You'd think that this is nothing new, seeing as Rhodia is already a second kindred, but she actually completely ignores the limitations of the mechanic, as all her skills consume Bloodfist at combat start and not on use. The same cannot be said about Don Quixote. All her skills, except her counter, consume Bloodfist on use, meaning that if Gregor or Otis go before her, they cannot consume Bloodfist for the turn. Luckily, Dawn has very high speed, with 4 to 7 being her base spread and Heartblood increasing that even higher, meaning this interaction isn't going to come up too often, but when it does, you will feel it. Another fun fact about Manager Dawn is that she has a measly 172 base HP at level 50. This is even lower than that of Barber Otis, meaning that Princess Rhodia's second skill will now target Dawn, allowing her to reach even higher power values on her skills. Now, the biggest thing about Dawn is that in my eyes, she's the first identity in Bleed to be able to push out Rinyi Sang from the first slot. This is for two main reasons. First of all, in human encounters, Dawn's access to a multi-target skill allows her to deal a lot more damage than Rinyi Sang, thus making her a perfect fit for gaining a second slot early. Another reason is that Dawn kind of needs the extra slots. Her second passive only transforms the skill in Dawn's leftmost slot, meaning that if she has 2 or more slots, she's not going to use her big scary skills in every one of them. Now, you might not look at this as a positive, but consider this. Every normal skill in Dawn's arsenal allows her to gain Heartblood, while the empowered ones consume it. If Dawn is at one slot, she's stuck in a loop of gaining Heartblood and then consuming it next turn, which makes it difficult to hit Heartblood 2 or 3, limiting Dawn's potential. At 2 slots, Dawn's production of Heartblood starts always outscaling her consumption, assuming her second passive procs thrice every turn. And much more importantly, at 3 slots, Dawn gets access to another slot that can produce Heartblood. This makes it possible to easily stack Heartblood up to its cap, which means that Dawn gets to use her max weight skill 2, her max power skill 3, and of course the effects of Heartblood 3 itself. Now, you might think that all of this means that Dawn is just busted and all-powerful. And well, she does have one weakness. Of course, I'm talking about her lack of bleed count infliction. This is an issue that has started to plague Bleed with the release of the bloodfiend identities, as their kits do not have enough count to stack Bleed without outside help, and as more and more identities of this type are released, more and more count-inflicting supports are pushed out in favor of the newest damage machines. This issue is further exacerbated by the fact that Dawn requires all other bloodfiends to be present to perform at her best, meaning that she gets debuffed every time you take one out. Before I end the video, I want to go over the 2 main ways to fight against this weakness. By the way, my next video will be on the topic of the new state of the Bleed teams, so I'll delve into this deeper in that video. Today I just want to look at the 2 easiest ways. First of all, if you haven't upgraded your other bloodfiends, good news! The effects of Dawn's passive proc even if the Manchaland ally has been defeated. So if your Otis is at level 1, just throw her to the wolves on the first turn, and enjoy your fully stacked Dawn, while an AD like Armor Salt helps out with the team's count. Another option for those like me who have everything new at max levels is to, well, pick Ring Otis over Barber Otis. Yeah, I know. Old trend I'm telling people to use ring identities, shocker. But really, if you're going up against a boss, getting the extra attack weight on Don's skill 2 will do nothing for you, while keeping up a bleed stack allows you to not only deal bleed damage to the boss, but also keep up full conditionals for the rest of your team. Once again, I will delve deeper into bleed team building in a future video, but for now, these are your best bets. And that's about it for the manager of Manchaland, Don Quixote. She's an insane identity that deals crazy amounts of damage, and interacts in interesting ways with her team. As is expected from a seasonal AD, she's incredibly good in almost every aspect. However, her lack of bleed count infliction forces the player to change up their team to keep up with Don's needs. She's really good, but even Her Majesty could not bring Barber Otis up from F tier. Thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed the video at any point, leave a like to show that to me, and consider subscribing to see more content like this. If you disagree, have something to add, or simply have strong feelings about this new Don, feel free to leave a comment down below. I promise to read every single one of them. This was Ultranom, and I hope to see you again soon. Goodbye!